The hybrid warfare conducted against the West by Russia has stepped up considerably over the last year. As well as IT-related attacks, Putin and his ally Lukashenko, President of Belarus, have been attacking EU borders by flying in thousands of migrants to overwhelm border defences and enter the EU.
Now, how effective is this strategy and what can be done to mitigate the risks? We're now joined by Viktoria Pogrebniak from Euromaidan-Warsaw Initiative to talk about the issue. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
Now, Viktoria, when it comes to migration and the situation on the Polish-Belarusian border, what is Lukashenko and Putin trying to achieve? And is it working?
Yeah, I totally hear you. Yeah. Sorry?
I'm going to repeat the question to you. We're talking about the crisis on the Polish-Belarusian border. And my question to you is, what is Lukashenko and Putin trying to achieve, and is it working?
Honestly, the attempt of destroying the, let's say, the peaceful situation and trying to bring new elements into the hybrid war that we are experiencing right now is always I would say the idea is to always change the focus from the things that really matter, the problem of the Ukraine, the problem of Ukrainian I would say territories, the war in Ukraine. They are always trying to get rid of that, let's say, issue of the news, out of the news, and trying to get the attention elsewhere. We experienced that in many cases. First of all, when there was a lot of complications with the let's say propaganda with Russia in Poland, we saw also such things in the political, let's say, fluctuation when some of the parties in Poland have been representing pro-Russian interests. We see it right now with the Belarusian border as well. So yeah, I would say it's just another way to distract the attention from the things that really matter for the whole world and for Europe particularly.
Indeed, it would seem, I mean, that does seem to make sense, perfect sense actually, Victoria, but, you know, it's not working, is it? I mean, people are more and more aware that this migrant crisis and IT attacks and so on are actually originating in Russia and Belarus. And so, yes, it's perhaps being ineffective. Now, you know, we've been hearing a lot about hybrid attacks in Europe, Western Central Europe, the US and so on. But it must be much worse in Ukraine, isn't it?
Indeed it is. I mean, the focus is going behind different aspects, I would say, of a war. So yeah, right now, because of the many things that are going in the world seems to find another, let's say, another topics to discuss, like Israel, of course, and Palestine. They have found another things that are matters like Myanmar or China, etc., etc. But the things that are happening in Ukraine are still happening, and they're happening every day, which we are not very much aware of if the focus of the society is changing. Indeed, what is happening right now to Ukraine is the massive catastrophe which world seems to forget. But we know all that the history that is forgotten by people tends to repeat again and again. Right now, for example, Russia is still killing the people on the streets of Kharkiv, of Poltava, as we can see here. They are still destroying the infrastructure, which causes Ukraine the critical damage on the heating systems, which means that the next winter won't be, let's say, vital. The system of the heating won't be vital in Ukraine. This is the things that are happening every day, but the world seems to forget about things that are old for them, right? And yeah, this is another, I would say, tactic of Russia, again and again, trying to distract the attention of the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're trying to distract it, but here on TVP World, we are talking about it since the very beginning, and it is one of our top stories, and it's our responsibility to talk about it. But I would like to ask you about propaganda, about Russian propaganda, because we're dealing with it here in Poland, and also Western countries are dealing with it. Now, what about Ukraine? Can you pinpoint some areas, perhaps social media, TV, that Russian propaganda is trying to reach, and is it noticeable in Ukraine?
We definitely see a lot of reports about that, especially in the social media, which are easily influenced and easily reachable by Russian agents and Russian, well, basically pro-Russian forces. They're using Telegram, they're using also TikTok, they're using also Instagram and Facebook for sharing their propaganda. Luckily, the platforms itself are trying to protect these, I would say, ecosystems, these platforms, but still there are so many I would say one-day publics created that it's very hard to stop this force. And luckily, people in Ukraine are much more educated than they were 2 years ago. They understand what is going behind the scene, what is going behind such messages. People are getting very aware in Ukraine. I would even say much more aware than people in France or Germany, for example, that are getting under the influence of such propaganda much easier, and they also do not having this. They don't have this feeling of constant war going, so it's just easier for them to go through. Although, yeah, on the unofficial channel, so-called, the social media is still a big problem for Ukraine to deal with such, I would say, publics and to deal with such propaganda.
Well, of course, with Ukraine being literally the front line, people's awareness of the risks increases much faster than countries further away from there. Now, staying with social media, propaganda, and so on, are you finding a multinational response? In other words, are you getting support from outside Ukraine to protect the information systems?
It definitely could be done better. It definitely could be expanded into the international and especially European Union politics, which I honestly do not see right now on that scale. Of course, there are attempts of the governments and of the local organizations to prevent it. We are, as the Euromaidan-Warsaw Initiative, are also doing this by explaining people how the propaganda is working, what is the true and what is not true, how to see the difference between the facts and between the massive propaganda. Although we do not see the I would say the algorithm and the mechanism on the international level of first of all preventing such would say publics or such information to go into the public eye. And second, we also do not see any lawful mechanism how to effectively fight with such propaganda and with such agents. There are a lot of people in whole Europe and in the whole world that are still protecting Russia, paid or not, but they are still doing it. And because of the freedom of speech and lack of the regulation, anti-terroristic regulations, right now, world is not doing much to prevent such sources of information, although they are sharing the incorrect information and in most of the cases harmful information for all of us. So yeah, we would definitely expect the government, first of all, to implement these solutions, to implement the lawful mechanism to forbid such channels and such propaganda publics from existing, as it was done, for example, with a few Russian channels in the European Union.
Right. Well, certainly there is a lot of work to be done, both on a national and international scale there. Now, in the last few seconds that we have left, Viktoria, the $50 billion that has been released and has been agreed to be sent to Ukraine over the next few years, how is that being anticipated? How was that news responded to? And do you have any idea of where it's going to be spent as a priority? I mean, you mentioned the energy infrastructure. Is that going to be top of the list, as far as you know?
Well, I'm not the government of Ukraine to say, right? But what I really believe is that the effort that we have done, all of us, the civilian society, the representative of the country, especially the politicians, we have done massive work to make these funds get to Ukraine, to make the financial support go to Ukraine. And we definitely do not want to spend the opportunity to make it that right. First of all, to support the local communities, to support those who are harmed the most, those who are the most fragile from as the result of the war. Yes, definitely civic society shall be covered at the first side. I also expect the Ukraine to do that. Of course, I cannot see the whole documentation going behind the supporting behind the funds that were granted. But yeah, that would be the first idea, right? To protect the civilians, perhaps by also protecting them by creating the shield over the cities, and by reconstructing the infrastructure and the critical objects of infrastructure.
Viktoria, thank you very much for your insights. Viktoria Pogrebniak, Euromaidan-Warsaw Initiative, thank you so much for joining us.